Good morning. Good morning. Fantastic, marvelous morning. Why? Because my God touched me with the gift of life this day. Do y'all feel me? Do you feel how grateful I am for being chosen this day, this moment? To be alive, breathing, all because my God decided that I should rise. Therefore, am an honored to give him the glory, the praise, the hallelujah, the worship, the acknowledgement. My God knows I need him, but he knows I want him like nothing else possible. Yes, to my God be all the glory. Why? Because 34 plus years ago, he met me underneath a parked car, prepared me, delivered me to be sitting here before you this day. A very special day because this is also the day that my daddy transitioned. Edward Clinton Hall Sr. And my name was Edwina Clinton Hall before I married 3 times, but I am named after my daddy. So I'm going to do a special tribute on behalf of my daddy, Edward Clinton Hall Sr. But before I do that, I'm going to yield to the spirit and do my normal announcement so that I can give all the time I need to tell you a little bit about my daddy and how he contributed to areas of my life that I am still dealing with, that I am still practicing, and the garb that I have on right now is a representation of his educational process of African studies and how he wanted all his children to know their heritage. Okay, so let's get to the announcements. All right. First, we're going to acknowledge that this is Free to Hope. From recovery, emerge empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. So, welcome to the Free to Hope conversation with Edwina B. Y'all know me, Miss Cuckoo for Cocoa Pops. Now, you won't see these dentures falling down because I put them in a little earlier this time, right? But you never know what happens. Thank God that through this 34-year process of recovery, utilizing the 12 spiritual principles, my of Alcoholics Anonymous, my church affiliation with Canaan Baptist Church, my spiritual revival hour gospel songs with the late Dr. Benjamin Twin Brown. Y'all know I've been appointed finally as the executive director of Community Communications Corporation. Also, the 5 agreements, the transformational teachings by Dr. Sonia of Global University, Global P3 University, right? And so I'm just ecstatic at how my God prepared me when I had my one and only knee bowing experience on February the 22nd of 1990, 3 o'clock in the morning. And so I am so grateful that I am walking in my God given steps, my destiny, and definitely my purpose. I'm going to live until I die. Why? Because my heaven is here on earth and I'm living it to the best of my ability. So, the Spiritual Revival Hour, Dr. Benjamin Twin Brown, my AA fellowship, you know I'm going to my meeting regardless at 7:30, and all the others that have helped pave my way to spiritual growth, right? The other thing that I want to share with you as well is my upcoming master's class, and I did secure a venue, and it will be on the I forget what it's called, but it's the best kept secret in Wilmington, right? Chris Fullman has a studio at Ninth and Church, right by that industrial complex, right? And so I will be getting the Eventbrite for that as well. All right. And then I just want to also let you know that I am also the program director for Divine Light Recovery Treatment Center. We are in the process of uh, expanding our services for those suffering from addiction with mental illness on a lower level, right? We provide outpatient, intensive outpatient. We provide housing to our clients. I call them family members. We are opening up a transition house for couples, right? And we are also providing intensive outpatient treatment in the evenings. So if you want to come by and see us, we're at 1016 Delaware Avenue, or you can go to the website to find out where we are in Philly, right? Wilmington, as well as Baltimore. We are definitely trying to help with prevention, intervention, and restoration from co occurring disorders. All right. The other thing I want to share with you now before I go to my dad is the reading for today. All right. So many of you know that being in recovery, I look at and attend my 12-step meetings for the AA Daily Reflections. And today the topic is living our amends. Okay. Now, this is from our co-founder, Dr. Bob and or Bill W. And it states, years of living with an alcoholic is almost sure to make any wife or child neurotic. The entire family is, to some extent, ill. From the Big Book on page 122. It is important for me to realize that as an alcoholic, I not only hurt myself, but I also hurt, but also those around me. Making amends to my family and to the families of alcoholics still suffering will always be important. Understanding the havoc I created and trying to repair the destruction will be a lifelong endeavor. The example of my sobriety may give others hope and faith to help themselves. Now, I don't know if you noticed or not. I don't know if you noticed or not, right? But as I was reading that, I got emotional. Yes, I got emotional. You know why? Because my daddy, yeah, was a functioning alcoholic. Yeah, functioning in that he always worked, kept the roof over our head, and provided for his 6 children and my mother for many, 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 many years. My daddy and my mommy were teenage parents, and they too had a challenging life, right? I found all of this out when I did my 4th step called or entitled Made a Searching and Fearless More Inventory of Ourselves, right? And so by me doing my 4th step, I learned a lot about where my attitudes, my ideas, and my behaviors were formulated. And this man, Edward Clinton Hall Sr., had the most impact and influence on my life. You see me in the middle there, right? All bushy, wide eyed. My daddy, that was my daddy, that was my daddy, right? And he has his African symbol on, right? And years later, eventually, I got into the African history and heritage as well. And both of them are still looking up. Both of those pictures are still looking up. And I'm going to tell you, when you see these tears flowing, they are tears of joy. Yes, they are. Why? Because I understand a little better by doing my fourth step inventory that there was nothing wrong with me, but there was plenty that happened to me. But I'm not focusing on myself right now. I'm focusing on my daddy. I learned through the 12 step spiritual program that we make an attempt to try to understand than to be understood. Yes. And so when I realized that my daddy was the center of my world, my universe, I wanted to be just like my dad. And in many ways, shapes, forms, and fashions, right? I modeled a lot of his behaviors, attitudes, right? Ideas, right? And definitely behaviors, both positive and negative. And so there were many times when I didn't understand a lot of things as I was growing up, along with my five siblings. I happened to be the third child, and I am named after my daddy. My daddy wanted a boy so bad, right? After having two girls, he wanted to name me Edwina. My mom said, I don't think so. And she came up with the name of Edwina. Now, most people would pronounce it Edwina, and some people still do. But my mom liked Edwina, right? And so I'm named Edwina Clinton. I got my daddy's middle name, Clinton Hall. Yeah. And so as I journeyed along with my family, we know, like all other families, there are some good times, some bad times, some challenging times, right? But when I look up to my dad, I saw a strong man, a determined man, a ruthless man, right? A fearless man. And I saw some ugly sides of my daddy too. Mhm. And even though I'm smiling, I wasn't smiling back then. I'm smiling now because I understand just a little bit more, right? And so my dad was, as I said, a provider, but he also had some sides of him that I did not like, I despised. And I'm going to say I had a love hate relationship for my dad. Yes, I did. As much good as he did and showed us, and I'll get into some of that, but for whatever reason, the negative had the most impact on me. Yes. When we talk about going back into our history to find out what happened to us and not what's wrong with us, I imitated a lot of my father's negative behaviors, some positive, but a lot of negative behaviors, right? And so let me get the positive out the way first, right? So, my father was a scholar. He loved African history. My father was a advocate for the Black Studies, Pan African Black Studies, African Studies at Temple University. He conducted classes, right? He was a SEPTA driver for many, many, many years and retired as one. And my dad was well known in the community because of his masculine stature, right? His no nonsense attitude, right? And he was very well respected. Many of them call him Mr. Hall. Here come Mr. Hall. Hey, Mr. Hall, Mr. Hall. He demanded respect. Yes, he did. And so those are some of the positive things that my dad did, right? He also taught us how to like butter pecan ice cream. And he would always trick us when he got those egg rolls, right? And you know, with little kids and your parents got something that they're eating, all of us want to get some right from him. And I remember him dipping this egg roll into this yellow sauce, right? And we were so eager, right, to get some of that. And it was hot mustard, right? And you talking about our nose flaring, our eyes watering. And my dad was cracking up, right? He was just cracking up, right? And so guess what? I still like egg rolls with hot mustard, right? And like I said, with the skating, he took us to Carmen skating ring often. And it's one thing that I didn't learn from my dad is how to skate backwards. He could skate backwards, sideways, front ways, and those were some of the more better times in our lives. He taught us how to box. Yes, yes. I'm a tomboy, and I wanted to be just like my dad. And he often would give us little boxing gloves, and he would teach the girls how to box, or automatically the boy. But me, listen, look. Yes, yes, yes. And so I learned and enjoyed those special times with my dad. And there were also times when my father was very affectionate with my mother. And that is where I would get confused. I loved to see my dad grab my mom's hand and start dancing to Sugar Pie Honey Bunch. You know I love you. I can't help myself. I love you and nobody else. And they used to dance to that song. Not often, but I remember him grabbing her hand, and that just melted my heart to see my mom and dad right having intimate time, right? And I also remember, sitting at the dining room table where family sat down and ate, right? And my father sat at the head of the table, and we sat on the sides. And my mom would eventually sit down after she served my dad first, and then her children, and then my mom ate what was left over, and I would often say, well, why daddy gotta get first? Why can I get first? And and so there were times I was a little jealous of the way my mom and my siblings, catered to my dad, right? I didn't like that at all. But anyway, we did sit down and have family dinner. And so I do remember, driving in those big long cars, right? And I remember him playing the music of the 60s and all, and how we were all happy and go lucky and things of that nature. So those are the positive images I have of my dad. And towards the end of his life, or, as he began to transition years before he died, he started playing James Cleveland record, Peace Be Still, Peace Be Still. And I had never in the past heard my dad play any kind of gospel music. I don't even remember my dad ever going to church. I don't, you know what I mean? But I understand that he did, because that's where him and my mom created my first sister, right? But I don't remember him being in church and the Bible and the religious factor and the spirit. I didn't remember none of that, right? Until I got during my addiction, and also when he was um, uh, heading towards, a failed failing in his health, right? And so he would play Peace Be Still, and he would also play I've Been Redeemed, right? And never understood the magnitude of him playing those songs. I don't know. Maybe he thought he was dying or something. I don't know. And so, but I remember him sitting in that chair on 2642, North 22nd Street in the back room where the four girls used to stay, and now in his room. But he would sit in that rocking chair, and he would still have on his scepter clothes. And he would, as a matter of fact, I don't even think he took them off. I don't know. Well, yes, he did, because I remember taking money out of his pocket. So yeah, he did take them off. And so he would play these two songs over and over again, and I didn't think nothing of it, but the fact that, I don't know. And he said to his children that he wanted us to learn the song Peace Be Still by James Cleveland, right? And we was like, we ain't into the African studies. We ain't into learning this song. But, you got to do what Dad tell you to do. And we tried. We would get the lyrics and we would rehearse. But, it was short and in between, right? And I don't know if he said something to the effect that I want y'all to sing this at my funeral. I don't remember him saying that. But why would you ask us to rehearse and learn this song? So I didn't really know. So anyway, those were the positive things that I remember about my dad. Okay. And so on the flip side, there were some things that confused me a lot. And so my dad was a womanizer. And I know that because of all the women I have seen, right? And he is married, right? Right? Miss Jefferson, Miss Catherine, his Duchess Ruth, and plenty of others, right? And so as a little girl, I'm looking at my daddy, my father, who is married to my mother, having other women. And the only times most of the times when I would see these women is when he would bring them in our house to take care of us after he put my mom in the hospital after abusing her. Yes. See, I'm transparent and I'm authentic, right? But could you imagine where my brokenness and being broke, when it comes to my sexuality, my sensuality, my identity, my view of men, my view of women, my view of marriage, right? Mm-hmm. You talking about confusion? Yes, I was confused, right? Now, did I say I was confused? No. I just remember these things, and the seeds of those negative attitudes, ideas, and behaviors were planted. And yes, they were perpetuated throughout my life. Okay. When it came to my father abusing my mother, that was the times that I remember him showing her the most affection, when and after he abused her. Yes. Put her in the hospital several times, the black eyes and all of that kind of stuff, right? Now, listen, the day this is the day of transition, and guess what? It is what it is. But I'm telling you from a child's perspective, by doing my 4-step inventory, I had to learn what happened that shaped my attitudes, ideas, and behaviors that contributed to my brokenness and being broke, and how my daddy had the most influence and impact on my life. Okay. So I grew up with the mentality that if men abused me, they loved me because they would show me affection afterwards. Yeah. That women are to be used, abused, and replaced. Yes. I also learned that my father had this Foot Locker, that's what it's called, And one day he forgot to lock it. And me being the curious one, the one who looked just like him, the one who modeled all his attitudes, ideas, and behaviors after him, the one who they said was his favorite, right? And I agree. I agree. That was my daddy. But I went into that Foot Locker and I saw some things that children should not see. Mm-hmm. That didn't stop me. Mm-mm. I saw pictures. I saw books. I saw sexual toys, I guess. I didn't know what it was called at the time, right? Mm-hmm. And so I began to wonder if my dad is looking at these pictures of white women and Playboy magazine, if my dad is taking pictures naked while a woman is giving him oral sex and he's standing there like he King Kong, and if my dad is utilizing these toys, then maybe I should do all those things. Yeah, because I wanted to be just like my daddy. So yes, the confusion, the distorted thinking that I had. Well, if my dad is looking at white women in Playboy, then I need to look at white women in Playboy, right? And so that's when the seed of curiosity for me, right, and having the idea. Well, I know I'm a girl, but now I'm attracted to white women because my daddy is attracted to white women in these books, right? And then also my dad is having these things performed on him, right? So all that stuff contributed to my way of thinking, right? My attitudes, my ideas, and my behavior. See, when we get into a 12-step recovery program and we want to address our brokenness and being broke, we have to tell the truth from our perspective and what we thought and what we saw and how it affected us. And so when I was confused about my sexuality, it was a result of those pictures I saw in my dad's Foot Locker, right? And guess what? Those thoughts manifested themselves years later because the seed was already planted. My father and other men in the family showed me, and I followed their path too, that women are to be used, abused, and replaced. And guess what? After my first marriage and at 19, and I saw my husband do the same thing my dad was doing, I adopted the attitude I'm going to, right? I'm going to use them, abuse them, and replace them. Talking about men. Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes. Mm-hmm. And so, what I eventually had to do when I did my 4th-step inventory, I wanted to find out about my dad. I wanted to find out what happened to my dad. I wanted to find out why he did the things he did, why he said the things he said, why he acted the way he. I wanted to understand my daddy. And so, because of the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, me and my dad sat together for about 2.5 hours, and I began to ask him about his life because I wanted to understand. Well, come to find out that my dad was given away, right, by his mother, Elizabeth Kemp. So Hall is not really our last name, it really is Kemp. But he was given away. And he didn't find out till years later, right? And so the fact that he was given away, right, had it, he didn't know he was giving it away until one day he went to school and he saw this girl that they looked just alike, right? Margaret Kemp, the one that I told you about, right? And come to find out that she discovered that they were brothers and sisters. Mm. Could you imagine what that does to a child when for so long they thinking they're the only child, and then find out that they have siblings and they have a biological mother, right? And so when my dad was given away to the Halls, right, he experienced some abuse as well. Mr. Hall was proud to have a little boy, a little son, because his wife and him didn't have children. And so, as proud as he was, Mrs. Hall was resentful, angry, and everything else because she thought that her husband cheated with my dad's mother and had this baby. So she thought maybe it was his child. I tell you, right? And so then I found out because he was given away, he grew up resenting women, number one, through that experience. And then number two, when he and my mother got together, right? And he went into the army and he was away for a while. But at 15 and 17, they had my oldest sister, Ruby. While he was away, right? And we don't know how, what, when, and where, but he came back and my sister Deborah was born. And this is, I'm putting kind of pieces together, but to make a long story short, because it's past 7, my father found out that my sister Deborah Hall was not his child, that my mother was raped and conceived by one of her adopted mother's husband or brother, right? And at a young age, that seed of revenge, hatred, anger, perpetuated itself even the more. And so I realized that my father too had been damaged as a child. That there was something that my daddy had experienced also that contributed to his brokenness and being broke. And I wanted to understand what happened to my daddy. And having that conversation really, really helped, right? But my dad was not all the way truthful. He was not all the way authentic, nor was he transparent. And now I understand why he wanted those songs and hear those songs day in and day out. Yeah. Because of my dad's brokenness and being broke and his anger and resentment against women, right? And against what happened to his wife, my mother, and the situation with my second sister, right? He was so angry, he was so hurt, and I don't know how and what he did, but this is what he kept from me: that he molested, incested my sister from the time she was 7 to the time she was 21. And you better believe when I found out, I went to him and I asked him, and he lied. But I understood why he lied. I did. Right? And so I'm going to end this with a beautiful, beautiful ending, because through it all, I love my daddy. Through it all. But he was able to ask my mother, Helen Jones Lamar Hall Taylor, for forgiveness for all that he had done to her. He also asked forgiveness from my sister Deborah Jean Hall for what he had done to her. Yes. And so he died being relieved of the harm that he had caused as a result of his brokenness and being broke. So, although these tears are flowing, these tears are tears of joy because all of them have already transitioned. And some of the ramifications are still existing today because the niece that I'm taking care of, my dad is her father. It's amazing how when we want to identify our brokenness and being broke, that we have to have the spiritual tools and resources to walk in the dark in order to find the light, right? And so I thank God that I was chosen, right, to take care of my sister and my mother. And my father, he was taken care of because he had others looking after him. But the connection on that day when I was working at the Wilmington Police Department and I got a call on this day that my dad had passed. They said, Weena, we waiting on you to come see daddy. I don't need to see daddy. I don't need to see daddy. I understand what's going on. I don't need to see him that way. I don't. And I continued on with my training. And on July the 5th, we buried him. And my mother thought I was going to go cuckoo for Cocoa Pops for real because she knew how I felt about my daddy. She kept telling everybody, watch it, Weena, watch it, Weena. She only got a few years in recovery. Watch it, Weena, watch it, Weena. Edwina was all right. Edwina was all right. All right. Yes, I was. Because of these 12-step spiritual program and addressing my brokenness and being broke, I understand what was taking place. And because I apply spiritual principles to all earthly matters, death included, it's only a transition. So today I am honoring my dad by wearing my, I don't know, is it a kufi? I guess, my Afrocentric clothing. And because of the seed he planted in that area, majority of my clothes is African ensembles, right? African wear, attire, okay? And so I just wanted to share this time with you on the day that my dad transitioned and to wish him a very, very happy Father's Day. But guess what? My father is God and God all by himself. And so I understand that we as human beings are all ill to some extent. And that one day, and I don't know what day it was for my daddy, that he had his knee bowing experience and he began to allow himself to be changed and challenged through those songs. I've been redeemed and peace be still. Yes. So I'm going to play those records today and just visualize my father sitting in that rocking chair, wanting to be restored from all the insanity he had experienced in his life, right? And some of the good times he may choose to remember or not, but most of us tend to remember the negative things because we always wondered what happened. No, what's wrong with us? When in reality, we need to find out what happened to us, okay? So thank you for allowing me to spend this time. And let me say that I love you. I love you. You love me. We are one big family with a great big hug and a kiss from me to you. Won't you say you love me too? I love y'all. I love y'all so much. Yes, I do. I've been set free from recovery. I have emerged empowered to give hope to others, help others prosper equally. These are tears of joy because I know who my father is. And I have an awesome personal relationship with him. Yes, I do. I'm in love with my daddy. And I love me too. And I love you too. To God be the glory. Be of service to someone. If it's God's will that we are reunited tomorrow, I'll be here. And if it's God's will, you'll be here too. Be blessed. Lord, I love you.